And welcome back. Next, we're in conversation with Angelo Ficht, who is the Director of Research at the ASRI. We're also joined by Xolani Ntube, who is a political analyst. Let's first start off with Angelo. Angelo, just quick reaction to what the president has announced. I guess it came as no surprise considering how the numbers have been escalating over the past few days especially. Hi, Angelo, can you hear me? Okay, let's go to Xolani Ntube. Xolani, can you hear me?
I can hear you very well.
Okay, let's just quickly get some reaction from you from the announcement that the president has given us earlier on. I'm saying that it came as no surprise, some may argue.
Look, I think it's a clear indication that our country is progressing backward, and we are not amazed about what he said today, because why I'm saying that, if you look how the ANC as the governing party has been failing to manage itself as well as to manage the country, one is not surprised that they are also failing to manage COVID-19. And so I think we are still going to be in this sinkhole for quite some time until possible certain citizens who will stand up and say, look, we as citizens, we want to give direction. Because if you know very well, Aldrin, we come from a 6 months house arrest where the South African citizen decided to accept the laws of this country and to listen to the president, but he posted that house arrest. We were only confronted by the so-called corruption and so forth that were not really helping the South Africans. And so whatever that is going to happen henceforth, we have to understand that it might be the manifestation of South Africans who say, look, we gave you our trust, we gave you our hope, but you did not really honor what we gave it to you. And so I think here, to a certain extent, the ANC as well as the president of this country, they are losing the currency, and that currency is trust and also the hope that the South Africans always give to the president of any country to take them forward.
Okay, let's just quickly hear from Angelo. Understand that you can hear us now. Angelo, just wanted to get some reaction from you to what the president has announced.
Yes, I think we are in very deep waters, and one could tell that from Cyril Ramaphosa's almost exhausted, exasperated look. And I agree with Xolani to a certain extent that this is a combination of government, failure. The corruption cannot be dismissed; it cannot be ignored. But South Africans as a whole, we also have to take some responsibility. We actually did not, and this is where I disagree with Xolani. I don't think we observed the lockdown particularly well. I think we came out of the lockdown and people as a whole on very large scales and in very important places started misbehaving. And we always knew that December was going to be difficult, but I think people, whether they were the matriculants who went partying at the coast or whether they are ordinary South Africans who continue to, simply act irrationally in the magical belief that if they take a test today, it will somehow make them immune to infection, regardless of their behavior between now and Friday. So the unscientific thinking, that's partly the consequence of South Africans' own actions, but it's also the consequence of very bad governance over the last 25 years that have given us a population that is so poorly skilled in scientific understanding. One isn't surprised, even when one is shocked and outraged, that people are not following the necessary protocols.
Do you then think, Angelo, that there was probably an overestimation from the government side that people would be complying with the rules and regulations to such a point now that you have the president having to announce that it is now illegal to be in a public space without a mask? It is a criminal act.
Absolutely. We're a country with a very weak social compact. The differences that we have inherited from our previous dispensations haven't gone away, and new differences and distinctions have grown only sharper. South Africans, we like to tell ourselves we're a country that's law-abiding, but we know that we're not a country that's law-abiding. Our road accident statistics should tell us how people simply don't abide by the law prior to a crisis. And so I agree with Xolani completely that what this crisis has revealed is not only how government, but this entire society was ill-prepared to cope with and adhere to what was required in order to get through this. And I think there's no future point at which we're going to create critically literate citizens. The point is now we need to work in this period of crisis with everybody that we know to encourage them and also begin to sanction them. And it is the responsibility on our heads to say no to things that are deeply discomforting. And all of us have to make sacrifices, whether it is, in my case, not attending your own father's funeral, or whether it is in the case of other people not negotiating lobola in person, or sending your child to initiation school, or going to parties at Christmas. This is not this is not somebody else's problem. This is not just government's problem. This is all our problem. And we need to work together and build a social compact through this crisis.
Angelo, just quickly, your take on the uncertainty that has been expressed by opposition parties in relation to securing this vaccine. The president had previously announced early in the next year, 2021. Now he says in the first half of the next year. What's your take on it?
Again, I think people are very, very, they have valid concerns around this. And it's not just opposition parties. It's not just Peter Groenewald or Bantu Holomisa. Many of us are concerned because we have elderly relatives who should be on that. There are Latin American countries poorer than us, and not inside the BRICS formation that have started inoculating their populations and the vulnerable. We should get that as soon as possible, and particularly for the healthcare workers, because it's doctors and nurses, some of the lowest paid nurses in this country, who've had a horrific year, will have to go through another even more dreadful than usual Christmas season, having to help people who behaved irresponsibly, who are putting their lives, their families' lives at risk, and for whom January is going to be a horrific period precisely because we're going to see infections in the next 14 to 15 days from even people, violating the regulations at the moment. And it's often not people that who can't afford not to violate it. It's often among people who can very much afford to violate it. Middle-class people, wealthy South Africans, etc.
Well, thank you so much, Angelo. But Xolani, your take on that, this uncertainty in relation to this vaccine?
Look, as I'm saying, we are a leaderless country, and I don't think that we do planning because, as I've said, this pandemic has been with us for quite some time now. And to hear kind of mixed matching between the Department of Health as well as the presidency, and it clearly shows that there is no coordination in terms of how to run this country. And it's such a shame that those countries that are, to a certain extent, in terms of human development and in terms of standing economy, like your Costa Rica, your Mexico, and so forth, they are at the advanced stage in terms of dispensing the vaccine. And so the issue of locking people in their houses without giving them an alternative, I think it is very unfair because we've been in this in the previous, and the next year is January, and we have to take into consideration the socio-economic factors that parents have to pay for school fees. Parents have to prepare for next year. And so, in the South African context, that January is very commercialized. And so you ask yourself, if you're going to arrest people until the 15th of January, how are they going to survive in terms of economy and so forth? And if you look at the speech of the president, the most people that to a certain extent are being suppressed are those who are in the informal sector. And the informal sector, it's servicing and is being driven by the so-called the historically dispossessed and the oppressed of our country. And so such kind of pandemic and the way the president is trying to sort out the issue to a certain extent is still widening the gap between the poor and the rich. And we have not seen him trying to make a serious intervention on how to bring close those who are poor and how to a certain extent, help those who are poor to meet and confront the realities that they will be facing in January and February next year.
And at least now we hear from Discovery saying that it will try and secure those vaccines for its members. Xolani Ntube, really appreciate your time, as well as Angelo Fick. We've come to the end of today's program. Thank you so much for watching.